Good morning, myself Minha and Devina here to present about French Renaissance. French Renaissance architecture is a style which was prominent between the late 15th and early 17th century in the Kingdom of France. The style was originally imported from the Italy next after the Hundred Years' War by the French king. The several notable royal statues in the style were built in the Loire Valley, notably the Chateau d'Amboise, which was a style that became dominant under Francis I. The style progressively developed into a French mannerism known as the Henry II style, and the major architects of the style included the royal architects Philippe Delaroche, Pierre Lescot, and Jean Boulin, and the Italian architect and the architectural theorist Sebastiano Serlio. The southwest interior facade of the Cour Carrée of the Loire in Paris was designed by Lescot and covered with exterior carvings by Jean Gonchou. The Renaissance had distinct periods. The early period, which ranged from 1494 to 1589. The special character of this transitional period lies in the combination of Gothic and Renaissance features to form picturesque ensemble. While in Italy, a return to classic forms took place. In France, there was a period of transition during which Renaissance details were crafted onto such Gothic features as flying buttresses and pinnacles. Classical period 1589 to 1715. The period is notable for the dignity, sobriety, and masculine quality of its foremost buildings, resulting from the subordination of plan, composition, and detail of the unity of the whole and the charity of the simplicity with which the elements were used. Ornament, though somewhat coarse, is vigorous and reasonably restrained. The late period during 18th century was a period where the Rococo style was established, which is a type of Renaissance ornament in which rock-like forms, fantastic skulls, and crimped shells are worked up together in profusion and confusion of detail, often without organic coherence, but presenting a lavish display of decoration. There were three kings who had great influence in the French Renaissance art. Francis I style 1515 to 1547. He actively encouraged humanistic learning, and he invited Da Vinci and Andrea del Sarto to France. He collected paintings by the great Italian masters like Titian, Raphael, and Michelangelo. He also used transitional technique in furniture construction, where Italian Renaissance ornaments and elements laid on Gothic forms, and was unknown for the variety of its ornaments, fancy motifs, and graceful composition. At his accession, the royal palaces of France were ornamented with only a scattering of great paintings and not a single piece of sculpture, either ancient or modern. It is during Francis' reign that the magnificent art collection of the French kings, which can still be seen at the Louvre, was begun. The most numerous type of windows in the Francis I style was square-headed. An occasional variation was the rounding of the shoulders. They were generally large and divided vertically by a mullion crossed by a transverse mullion or transom, near the top than the bottom, thus forming a cross. Beside these, there were also lesser number of round arched windows and windows with flat elliptical arch tops. Door heads corresponded in the shape of window heads, and above the door head carved or sculpture decoration was often added, significant of diverse and elegant structure of its embellishment and extravagant design. He continued the work of predecessors on the Chateau d'Amboise. Early in his reign, he also began the construction of the magnificent Chateau de Chambord, inspired by the style of Italian Renaissance. The Chateau de Chambord is a more elaborate marriage of Gothic structure and Italianate ornament. Francis rebuilt the Louvre, transforming it from a medieval fortress into a building of a Renaissance splendor. Henry II style 1547 to 1559. Henry was born in the Royal Chateau de Saint-Germain-en-Laye near Paris, the son of Francis I. The style Henry II marks the very height and the flower of the French Renaissance, the climax to which all the previous development was only preparatory. The most lasting products of Henry II's style were architectural, and he showed Italian classic influence and borrowed detail from classic architecture, that is, slender columns, cornices, moldings, friezes. Had simple forms, superb proportion, and balance. Windows to a great extent retained their mullionate and transom divisions, and mullions and transom were not always present, and square-headed windows without them and with to full-length casements were not uncommon. Round arched windows also occurred to some extent. Panels inside shutters were used. Door heads were of corresponding shape to window heads, and over door decoration often took the form of pediment, either rectilinear or arc-shaped with appropriate accompaniments.
Louis XIII style 1589 to 1643, also known as the Louis trace, a fashion in French art and architecture especially affecting the visual and decorative arts. Louis XIII architecture was equally influenced by Italian styles, influenced from the north through Flemish and Dutch Baroque, and from the south through Italian Mannerism and early Baroque. In this style of decoration, Baroque influences and especially Flemish Baroque influences began to make themselves more and more noticeable. Rectilinear in shape and had simple and basic forms. Carving and turning were the most used technique here. Here, windows were further increased in size, so that they extended nearly all the way from the floor to ceiling. About the same time, also stone mullions and transoms began to fall into disuse, being replaced by wooden substitutes or by wooden casement frames with broad stiles and rails. Jacques Lemercier completed the most famous work of the Louis XIII period, which is the Chapel of Sorbonne, 1635. Coming to the interiors, the French Renaissance was a time of royal, wealthy, and powerful designs. The period was highly influenced by the rulers. Also, a time where the royal taste determined the style of the country and even the world. Decorators had the job of bringing these concepts to life, and Francois I was the most famous patron of the arts. The French Renaissance interiors were created at Fontainebleau in the 1530s by the Italian artists Rosso Fiorentino and Francesco Primaticcio. Doors, windows, and stairs are the important features, and their characteristics include slender nymphs with clinging drapery, garlands, etc. Characteristics of French Renaissance. They include round arches, pilaster, keystone, balustrade, French doors or windows, chimneys, etc. And the doors, windows, and stairways are the important features here. Large prominent chimney pieces are focal points. The projecting hood may be decorated with classic and Gothic details, coats of arms, and royal and period motifs. It does not have classical proportions, but entablatures, pilasters, and columns shapes the overall design. Decoration is concentrated on the floors, walls, and ceilings. Room use is flexible and has few furnishings. Domed ceilings are embellished with carving and brightly colored stripes, arabesques, or other repeating motifs. Plaster ceilings are usually left plain. The characteristics include slender nymphs with clinging drapery, garlands, scrolls, drapeworks, grotesques, and stucco figures. They were not heavily followed. The interiors continue to feature Gothic and classical elements. Coming to furniture, the French country interior design style get furniture to impart a flowing feel to a living space. Lines are curved while there is no hint of ornamentation or opulence, as natural materials like wood with carvings and a low-key finish are used. Panels were beautifully carved with graceful figures. Grotesque, arabesque, rinceau, and classical motifs were usual within the period. Flemish scrolls were conspicuous. Stretchers were set out as X form with a vase form or turned final placed at intersection, solidly built, with the structure of Gothic period that has been continued to be used with Italian Renaissance ornamentation. Carving, inlay work, turning, gilding, and painting were the main methods of decorating. Coiffures were mostly used by the woman, scaled, lightly wooden chair with a tail, narrow paneled back attached to a trapezoid seat. Armored wardrobe cabinet that is movable and commode chest of drawers were also used. Thank you.